Now on Victory Online, we join Bob Bruce and Loree Westron in the studio for the Portsmouth Authors Collective, and they're interviewing Otto Redman about his new book, Sarah's Cats.
And it's that time of the week again. Yes, it's Portsmouth Authors Collective Book Club with myself and Loree Westron here on Victory. And we have a guest author every week. And today it is Otto Redman. And Otto's fascination with horror started from a young age with television series such as The Addams Family, The Munsters and The Twilight Zone. And he went on to read Gothic literature by authors including Mary Shelley, Bram Stoker, H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, and developed a love for the classical Hammer horror and B-movies of the 1960s and 70s. During the COVID pandemic, he redirected his career into writing horror stories of his own centred around his hometown. His first novel, The Vampire of Portsmouth, was released in 2022, and Sarah's Cats is his second novel. That's the book we're going to be looking at today. So this is where I'm going to hand over to Loree Westron. She'll be talking to Otto about his book, Sarah's Cats. Here we go, Loree.
It is New Year's Eve, and happy in her South Sea home, Sarah Pulling turns 11 at midnight. She is excited to spend the evening with her 19-year-old babysitter and best friend Amy while her parents are in London. Her birthday party is planned. She has a good idea of what presents they have bought for her, and Sarah feels on top of the world. When the police arrive at Sarah's door in the early hours, she finds that her world has been shattered. Who is this strange old aunt that has come to see her? Why has her mother called the old lady's beliefs blasphemous? And why is Amy reluctant to go home? Ooh, I love all those questions. So, Otto, let's talk about horror for a moment, about the genre. I know it encompasses quite a wide range of styles and themes, but what do you think makes a good horror story?
It's got to be something for me that's got a unique twist on it. It's got to have a take on it that sort of will grip me. I suppose folk horror for me is quite an interest for my sort of film watching at the moment, although I still do hark back to the slasher films of the 80s that I grew up with. But anything with a good story in it, and for me, I do like quite a high level of gore in a horror film.
Is that the same in prose in your books?
Yeah, my books are they take a more realistic view of things that happen. So when violence is involved, it is brutal because it's not pleasant. It's not designed to be pleasant. It is shocking if you ever see an event like that in real life. It's horrible, and that's what I try to put across in my writing.
Okay. So, Otto, tell us what your novel is about and what its key themes are.
Well, with my writing, I'm trying to go through different horror genres. So, Vampire of Portsmouth dealt with vampires. I decided then to move on to witchcraft for Sarah's Cats. So, it's about a look at the pagan, some of the pagan beliefs, and how Sarah falls into practicing witchcraft and uncovering her past lives to help her with her practice.
So tell us about Sarah and some of the other characters.
Right, there's several main characters in the story. Everyone, I imagine, that reads it will have their own favourite characters. I'll start with Sarah. Sarah, when we first see her in the book, which is in 3 parts, she's 11 years old, or just turning 11. There's a horrific accident and she ends up living with her great auntie, who she's never met, never been in contact with due to her parents' feeling towards her. As it progresses, she begins to decide that she would like to follow the path of witchcraft as well. She grows very, very attached to Anne throughout the first half of the novel, and she doesn't particularly like change given the accident that happens earlier. So she's quite cautious with her friends. She doesn't like them to be at any risk, and she'll try and help them out wherever possible. Sometimes whether they have a choice in that or not. Anne, who's probably one of my favourite characters, when we start the story, she's in her early 80s. She's been a bit of a recluse from the world for a long time following an accident where her husband died back in the 1950s. And from then on, she closed her coven she held in the area. She never had any children, although she wanted to. So when Sarah comes along, she suddenly sees an idea that she can perhaps pass her knowledge on to her. So it's as much of a chance meeting for her in a way as it is for Sarah, and they happily gel, I think probably is the best way to put it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really interesting. What about the cats?
The cats are an absolute vital part of the story. I read a story called The Cats of Ulpha when I was quite young, when I first got into H.P. Lovecraft's writing, which was only about 8 or 10 pages long. But it was quite interesting in that it used cats as a form of revenge, and I liked that. But I thought, well, why have a couple of cats? Let's have a lot of cats. So one of Sarah's powers in witchcraft is that she has a bond with these animals and that she can communicate with them. She doesn't really quite know what they say, but she has an understanding of what they mean and what they do. And when she's younger, she finds out what is happening with them, and they do helpful things for her, like when she's bullied at school, they help to resolve issues. They develop sort of thing, and they build in numbers as it goes through the book. So she starts with 2 that she takes from a rescue centre, which nobody else wants. They're actually scheduled to be put down. And she takes them in, and by the end of the story, every stray in the area has come to help her, and she ends up with over 150 cats by the end. So I try not to say too much to spoil the story, but let's just say I like to think of it as a tale of fur-based vengeance.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful. I am intrigued. I am definitely intrigued. I zoomed in on your cover yesterday, and I realized there were lots of cats, which I hadn't seen initially when I was looking at your cover. So that's very clever.
Yeah, a lot of the main characters are actually on the cover. They are actually, once you've read it, you'll be able to spot them out as to who is who.
Wonderful. Sarah's Cats is quite a big book. How did that come about, and what sort of research was involved?
How it came around, it was going to be a short story. I admit to that. I'm not going to try writing a short story. Perhaps I should try writing a long story, I think. But it started as a short story, and then I got more involved in it, and the more research I did around witchcraft, paganism, Wicca, and that, it sort of became, things began to slot in. I did a particularly large amount of research on cats' involvement within folklore and that. And what I found out is that cats have this ability, or considered to have this ability, that if you, say, cast a circle of protection around you, you have to make certain allowances to exit or leave that, otherwise you lose the energy created. Whereas cats can actually just walk across it and have no effect because they walk both the astral and the real world. And I thought that was an interesting concept, so I build on that in the story. So you find out more about how the cats can move around and how they interact with the astral world.
Fantastic. So what's next for Otto?
Well, the next book is actually almost written. It's taken a while getting this sort of edited down and ready for publication when it came out in August. So my next one is called The Old Forest. And it is again based in what I'm now calling the Witcherverse, because it's set in the same world as Sarah's Cats and will involve some of the same characters. So you don't have to have read Sarah's Cats to find out about it, but it involves a coven member from Anne's original coven called Mavis, who is investigating a series of events within a local forest.
Okay, sounds very intriguing. Tell me about your relationship with Halloween. How do horror writers celebrate Halloween?
I've got to be honest, Halloween's a good time of year. As soon as it starts in Halloween, it's a horror film every day leading up to Halloween. It's got to be.
And so I'm going to ask this question as well, because I always find it intriguing with our horror writers who all seem, as you do, quite softly spoken and self-effacing. And what is the link there?
I think it is just a way of relaxing. Whether you enjoy a horror film, whether you enjoy a romance film, it's down to personal taste, really, to extent as to how you can actually unwind and relax.
Wow.
It sounds strange, but it's like, why do some people like heavy metal? I find heavy metal very relaxing. I can put that on, but I know it drives other people to distraction. If I put Iron Maiden on, if my dad's around, he really hates it. It winds him up, but I love listening to it. So it's one of those things. I just find it relaxing, and I like looking into the story and looking at the shadows and seeing where any messages are put in the films.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Otto, one more question. where can people get your book?
You should be able to buy it from any good retail store, online store, basically. So Amazon, Waterstones, anywhere like that.
And locally?
But I would encourage using independent bookstores like Pigeon Books and New to You Books in Cosham.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming in. I mean, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you a bit better, Otto. And I look forward to seeing more of you around the Portsmouth Authors Collective.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Victory!
If you've enjoyed watching this podcast, then make sure you click that like button and remember to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more of our podcasts. And don't forget, you can listen in where we're busy making radio like it used to be on your DAB radio or online at victoryonline.co.uk. And you can also listen to us on your smart speaker. Just ask it to tune in to Victory Online. Thanks for watching and hope to see you again soon.